As I am sure that all of you know, if something isn't big, I am the last person on the planet to call it big. Okay. Meaning, when I say something is big, it's got to be pretty big. And what is happening right now is not only big, it's potentially ginormous. And what does all this mean? What is all this news of Credit Suisse now, right? Over the last 24 hours, the past couple of days before that, it was SVB. It was, two other banks, right? What is happening right now? What is happening with Bitcoin price specifically? Are we about to go much higher? And in fact, is something even bigger than you could imagine about to happen? So if we take a squeak peek on this chart right here, we see the S&P compared to Bitcoin. You can see over the last just a day or two, we see Bitcoin up massively while the stock market is actually breaching below a very long-term trend line. The entire year of 2022 and up until this point also 2023, we're now breaching below that after breaking above it for the first time just at the beginning of February of this year. But we see Bitcoin decorrelating a little bit, but in a very big way. Now, if we really want things to get big here with Bitcoin, it would need to last longer. And so that's really ideally what we're going to potentially see the rest of this month of March of 2023, which as well, I've seen many predictions even going back months that March of 2023 is potentially the month where we see a massive banking crisis. I believe even ChatGPT or AI predicted something like that, right? So if we take a look on Bitcoin's daily chart, we are bouncing. We have bounced on the 200-week moving average. You can see that here. It was all the way down below 20K, a price level we've been talking about for months now. We do see a little bit of a stall out in Bitcoin price today, a little bit of red here. But ultimately, if we take a look on Bitcoin's weekly chart, we do see we're still testing the tippy top and a very key moving average right here, the 200-week moving average to get above that for Bitcoin right here. So Bitcoin is in still a very good position here. Bitcoin looks really good right here, but the stock market, it does not. If we look at the stock market or the SPX specifically, you can see, again, we're kind of just testing right on this trend line right now. But again, this is where it gets exciting because this potentially could be the first time that Bitcoin isn't necessarily going to keep following the stock market, and it's huge. And currently, I'm absolutely trying to capitalize on this. I'm up about, what is this, like almost 12,000 USD in profit here. If you're interested, there are links in the comments and the description as well. But I want to take a step back and look at basically what's happening here. So US economic data coming out this week. We had the CPI and we had the PPI as well as retail sales and NY Fed Factory Index. And then we also have coming the Philly Fed Factory Index, jobless claims on Thursday, housing, and then consumer sentiment. So it's a pretty big week. And so far, we've actually gotten really good numbers with most of that. CPI and PPI were also good readings here. But specifically, again, I want to jump into this. So Credit Suisse is taking action to bolster. This is actually breaking news as of the less than an hour at the time of recording this. It announced it will be borrowing up to 50 billion in Swiss francs from Swiss National Bank under a covered loan. This is just short-term liquidity here. This is not something to get bullish on with this, but it's basically a last-ditch liquidity infusion according to Zero Hedge here. All it does is prevent forced asset liquidation. Meanwhile, it does nothing to halt depositor flight. And again, the bigger picture here is that if, realistically, it's just a matter of time, if the Fed keeps raising rates, then this is going to happen to more and more banks. So we're at a really, really interesting place here because either the Fed stops raising rates or slows down or pauses, whatever you want to call it, or they keep raising them and risking bigger, too big to fail banks collapsing. Right, because that is what Credit Suisse is. It's a too big to fail bank. It cannot fail. However, it looks as though, again, the reason this is so big, the reason I'm talking about it, the reason everyone's talking about it is because it looks like it's about to fail. And if it can happen to that bank, I think history has shown us that it can happen. Even though people might not believe it can, it absolutely can happen. So again, can they keep raising rates in this environment? It doesn't seem like they can. A week ago, we were worried about maybe a 50 basis point hike. Now, the big question is, can we raise anything at all? And again, this 50 billion liquidity injection that I just talked about is not going to save the bank. It's going to potentially put a Band-Aid on it for right now. but the long-term implications, again, are a lot more serious for this. Specifically, Bitcoin could absolutely benefit massively from this. Again, there's an article here, textbook perfect bump and run, reversal, bottom is back, target is over 100,000 according to Edwards here. Again, I think that's a little bit of an optimistic target, but as I've been saying for the last few days specifically, if we actually do see a major banking crisis, then all bets are off. We could see prices go much higher, much faster in a season that is not typically bullish cyclically for Bitcoin than we've ever seen. In the past 14 or so years since Bitcoin has existed in a stock market bull run. If we go to, let's actually just get rid of this and go all the way back, Bitcoin was created right about here, okay? And Bitcoin has basically existed in an environment where it has been up only. This was the crash back in March of 2020. Again, pretty much Bitcoin's biggest test here so far, but we've not had a sustained downtrend in the stock market since Bitcoin has been created. So this could get very obvious for obvious reason. If Bitcoin actually starts performing well, if the stock market starts doing something like this and Bitcoin starts performing well, even better than it has performed in bull markets, then again, that is a real possibility. And the reason is because that was why Bitcoin was created. I know you've been hearing this a lot. I've been saying it a lot of people have been saying it. But it literally is why Bitcoin was created. And we've never had a proper demonstration or proper test of that. And this is exciting because this could be the proper test. Now again, highlighting Credit Suisse is taking action right here. They're trying to prevent a massive further dumpage. And we have yet to see if it will hold up. But again, if rates keep getting raised and it gets more and more crunch time for the stock market and more crunch time as we try to combat inflation, then this makes it more and more likely not just Credit Suisse, but other banks have similar issues they might have to face. All the while, Bitcoin dominance has just reached a 9-month high over 43%. So again, Bitcoin looking much stronger here. And there is a possibility, it doesn't mean by tomorrow, but over the next week and the rest of the month as all of this unfolds, I think there's a very strong possibility that we do see Bitcoin have a massive relief here and potentially do things that nobody has really been predicting. If we really have an environment that becomes bearish for banks. Okay, not a month ago, even a week ago, nobody was really expecting banks would be in the position they're in now, right? And if banks are not an option, what other option is there? There isn't, other than Bitcoin.